but there's one who's sexy.
Welcome to Groovy Movies. My name is Lily Austin.
And my name's James Brailsford. Hello.
Hello. And this week on the podcast, bless your beautiful hide wherever it may be. For anyone who doesn't know, that is the opening bars, I want to say, the opening lines to a song from a musical that's very dear to my heart, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Yes, indeed. We are going full on the golden era of Hollywood musical, singing, dancing, all no expense spared production.
James did just rub his eyes as he said golden era of Hollywood. Are you telling on yourself? Was it a bit of an endurance run watching Seven Brides, Seven Brothers?
I mean, it's... The thing is, I haven't seen it before, and it's because I had a snap judgment of what I thought I'd feel about it. So, and I felt like my snap judgment was kind of about right, as in, it's very well done. The songs are great. The songs are great. It's beautifully done, but just a bit creaky is the best word I could put it. For me, a little bit dusty. Whereas I love Singing in the Rain and I love West Side Story. And although both of them they've dated because they were made in the 50s, but there's something about them that feels a little fresh and modern. This is very trad. This is a very trad. This is a Hollywood musical. So I think I wouldn't say it was a struggle, but certainly I could see why I avoided it, and my initial feelings were correct.
Well, I'd say trad is right. The trad wife trend thing on social media. I mean, if they need some inspiration, look to this movie because...
You will get lots of inspo from this film.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's set in Oregon in 1850. It's about a backwoodsman who goes out in search of a wife, brings her up to his cabin in the mountains, where she discovers that he has 6 brothers, all of whom are single and she needs to care for. She is a little upset that her husband failed to mention that on their wedding day. But I guess given that they met and married in about the space of 20 minutes, literally, there wasn't a lot of time for that the housekeeping, as it were.
The details, the little details get overlooked when you're in a rush.
Exactly, minor details. But the rest of the film then is pretty much about them finding themselves wives as well, because they really like Millie and they want one of their own.
Yeah, I mean, because they need someone to look after them, to cook, to clean,
of course
to do all the wifey things.
Yeah. I have to say, I wanted to do this film today because as we speak, listeners, I will be, if you're listening on the day of release, I'll be 3 days away from my own wedding day. And this is a film.
Congratulations, Lily.
Thank you, James. And this film is a childhood favourite of mine. I watched it from a very young age all the time because it was on quite a lot when I was a kid. And also, it's one of my fiance's favourite films as well. He's Italian, but he also watched it a lot. His mum, just like my mum, introduced him to this movie. So it's a sort of surprising shared film for us, so I wanted to talk about it today.
So when did you first discover that you both had a history with it?
I think...
Was it date number one?
It wasn't date number one, but I think it must have been around last Christmas when he came back for Christmas, because I discovered that and was like, oh my God, I knew he was the one, but now I know for sure.
Now you know for sure. This is one of the ones where this is the sign.
This is the sign.
It tells me I thought I was right. Now I know I'm right.
Exactly, yeah. And so we watched it at Christmas with my family. And yeah, it's a funny one because, if any of you haven't seen the film or don't know much about it, I gave you kind of the plot from kind of the top line, the intro, but really this is a film about rape. And it is based on Roman...
What a buzzkill.
I know. And it's based on a Roman story called The Sobbing Wives, I believe. The Sobbing Women, sorry. So it's based on a short story by Stephen Vincent Benet, which in turn was based on the Roman myth of the rape of the Sabine women. And it's quite funny because if you do a bit of research into Seven Brides, Seven Brothers, often it's described as very loosely based on the rape of the Sabine women, because God forbid it's closely based. But I mean, there is literally a song in the musical where the main character, Adam, played by Howard Keel, explains to his brothers the story of the rape of the Sabine women as way of saying, I've got a great idea. I've been reading this excellent instruction manual on how to get a wife.
Worked for the Romans.
It worked for the Romans. Let's go old school. Let's go and kidnap these women, and then they'll fall in love with us. And you know what, listeners? It worked.
It worked. That's what I took away from this film. If you want to essentially kidnap against their own will a woman, it'll all work out fine. They'll find it kind of quirky and whimsical, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. Last week we were talking about Fatal Attraction and how if you have an affair, don't worry, just kill the woman and everything will go back to normal. Now we have just kidnap the women and hold them hostage up in your snowy cabin over the winter, and they'll fall for you.
And by the time it's spring, their hearts will have thawed, just like the snow.
Exactly. Oh my God, I hadn't even picked up on that metaphor, James. My God, see, this film has so many depths.
But yeah, I mean, like, coming from Lily, you're I don't know how to express this, but you're somebody who looks very deeply into culture. You've got a feminist perspective on things. I was watching Seven Brides, Seven Brothers. This certainly, it doesn't really have much that you could say it's a feminist masterpiece. I don't know. Is there a reading on this that I can somehow,
No, absolutely not. No. There is no...
Just checking.
I think all instincts are correct in this. So that I think this is very much a feminist nightmare. It's a complete... it is a... But that... I mean, look, I think that if I hadn't watched this movie as a child, I mean, I don't know, there are a few things that play with it. It was so formative, like Howard Keel, because I also used to watch Kiss Me Kate from time to time that he's also in. And the two films, I mean, he is just like the platonic ideal of a certain kind of masculinity that as a child I found very exciting. I didn't know why, but it's so interesting that you see your relationship with Howard Keel, whereas my relationship with Howard Keel is from, like, I was kind of like 6 or 7 years old in the early 80s. And of course, he was on the biggest show on the planet at the time, Dynasty, and he played some kind of, I can't remember the character's name, but that's where I recognized him. So he was a much older gentleman at the time, playing this kind of like Deep South, oil tycoon or something. Really?
I can't remember. But that's how I knew him. So then to see him as a very dashing, handsome, the lead of Seven Brides, Seven Brothers, I was like, oh, right. This was not my thoughts when I think about Howard Keel. That's not what I go to, you see.
Yeah. But for me, all I've known him as is this like strapping, hunky, masculine man who is very assertive, very problematic. But at that time, I didn't have that reading. I just thought he was rather delightful with a beautiful, booming voice.
Oh, we have a beautiful, rich baritone voice, isn't it? And is it baritone? You tell us, listeners. I think baritone, bass, or something. But,
I'm not sure.
But my question, I mean, I was watching it, and it ballsy move, isn't it? You just let's get a wife along with all the rest of the supplies I need to get on my trip into town, because they don't come in town much often. But yeah, I mean, I was thinking that would it count as catfishing if you didn't mention the 6 brothers he lived with? Because, I mean, he's not pretending to be something he isn't. He just didn't mention it, so
he is sort
feels
of,
a little bit catfishy.
It's definitely, he's completely misrepresenting himself. And it's interesting because I feel like pretty much all the films I watched as a child that were older seemed to have the male lead, the male protagonist lying to his soon-to-be girlfriend as like a part of a plot point. It happens a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's pretty unacceptable and very much a red flag in real life. And yet in these films, that seems to be kind of part of their charm almost, Yeah, because it's great because within a couple of minutes of the film, Howard Keel is singing the song about trying to find the right bride for him. And it's just, even that, we're kicking off with him saying, pretty in size, but those thighs or something. It's like
I can't remember.
I forget the lyrics.
Very particular. There's a long list of things that his wife, has to fulfill.
Exactly. But then he claps eyes on Jane Powell, who plays Millie, and she fits the bill because when he first sees her, she's chopping wood. So, she's not like those other girly girls. She can hack it up in the mountains. She'll get her involved. And then she takes the wood into this kind of like inn where she's made food for all these men who all love her so great. She's great with lots of men, and she's a great cook. And she is, of course, beautiful. So tick, tick, tick. This is the one. She's kind of got a real maternal energy right from the get-go. All the women in the town love her and look up to her. So he ensnares her. And, in this instance, it wasn't an ensnaring. She was consensual. But yeah, is it consent if you don't know that you're going to have to be looking after 6 other men?
I mean, it's one of the psychopathic traits is lying by omission. So I don't think he's a psychopath. He doesn't really hit any of the others, but certainly lying by omission, that's like, yeah, it's a red flag for sure.
But what about the fact that after he's come back from kidnapping these women and Millie confronts him about it, and understandably is pretty upset. How can you do a thing like this? He runs off and goes further into the mountain to another smaller cabin they have somewhere way off there. And he's there for the rest of the film, basically. Throughout the winter, he completely abandons them, doesn't even come back when he hears that he is with child, that Millie has given birth to his child. Doesn't that make him a psychopath as well?
Well, because he doesn't display many other traits that psychopathic. However, that definitely makes me think he's at least a narcissist because, it's all about him, isn't it? Even though he's in the wrong, he upset Millie. It's him who's going off in a huff and won't come back, even though he's a father now. So strong narcissistic vibes I'm getting here. Yeah, lying by omission, and essentially it's all about them. It's their feelings are the only thing that's important. Yeah, so maybe a narcissist, but not a psychopath, I reckon. But that's the 7 brothers, or at least that's one of the brothers. Let's just swing over to the brides now, okay? And I was thinking, okay, let's see what the brides are like as characters and actors. Now, that they're very attractive, beautifully dressed and attired bunch, Hollywood glamour, but there was one who stood out and was like, okay, one, you're really standing out because the rest of them are all kind of, I would say, very like sweet and safe girls, but there's one who's sexy. And I was like, okay, you have my attention. And so I did a little bit of research and I was like, oh, right, it's Julie Newmar. Now, I immediately knew who Julie Newmar is because she played Catwoman in the first 2 seasons of the 1960s Batman TV show, which is this, like, if you've never seen it, it's incredibly camp, hyper-stylized, a lot of fun TV show, but she played the sexiest goddamn Catwoman. Well, debatable. We can get to that, but certainly up there as one of the top tier Catwomen. And then followed by equally a different take on it, Eartha Kitt's Catwoman. But yeah, Julie Newmar, the definitive essaying of the Catwoman, so much so that I think even Anne Hathaway's version in the Christopher Nolan film pays a huge homage to her performance.
Okay, well, I'm loving this Catwoman segue, and I think we should do like a post on Instagram where you do a list of all your favourite Catwomen in order. But I'm so glad.
I've got it ready to go, Lily. I'm saying I can put it on right now.
Let's go. Well, I'm
ranked, reviewed. Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned Julie Newmar though, because I have to say, of the brides, she also for me stands out like nobody else. She is so beautiful, so sexy. She has that very 50s low singing voice that I really like, that kind of, And she just, I was watching it with my fiance and we both were like, wow, she's the real star of this movie, I think. And, I'll add a link to the show notes. I found a like making of featurette that I'm sure was from like a DVD extra or something. And she is interviewed on it and she talks about singing the scene. I think it's called A Bride in June is the song they sing. It's or When You Marry in June. And it's a song where they're all like stuck in the house, having been kidnapped, and they're in their in the bedroom that the boys normally sleep in, and they're in their like bloomers and corsets, and they're singing the song about how amazing it is to get married, especially in June. And she's in this interview. She's much older. She's probably like, I don't know, in her 70s or 80s, talking about this. And she says like, oh yes, and we just had these. Everyone asked us if we could sing in these corsets, but yeah, I have to tell you, it was fantastic. We were all like cinched in. We looked amazing. Our waists were so tiny, they had to be taken out of it because it didn't look realistic. Oh, I just wish that those were in trend. We could still wear them. They're just fabulous. And it was just everything I want a Hollywood starlet to be like. Just like
right, she delivered.
She absolutely delivered. It's so worth a watch.
But she is like, you know, she's got the charisma in the group. Like your eyes are drawn to her when she's in the shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. To be honest, I barely remember the other ones, but she really has it. Especially because also she's got this like really striking face and dark hair, whereas the others are all a bit more blonde. So I guess there's that as well.
And our seven brothers, they're a mixture of actors and dancers. It was like I was wondering that I did recognise one of the brothers from West Side Story. I recognised actually.
Yeah. I think most of them were dancers, because that's the thing with this film is that yes, it's an insane premise for what is a family movie. It's definitely bizarre, but really what makes it so fun to watch is the songs are absolute bangers and the dance routines are incredible. This is why this is very much a golden age, golden Hollywood kind of movie, because it's all about the dance routines. You know, they would like, there's a particular scene where they're at a barn raising. This is what's so crazy about this film. Oh, not crazy, but just to me like amazing, because it's a film that very much is about the mythology of the start of America, you know, going west, raising barns, and there not being many women folk out here, because that's kind of the clincher of this story, is that the context is they're all out in Oregon where there aren't enough women to go around for all the men. So, of course, we will have to kidnap them once in a while.
We'll have to kidnap them. But yeah, it's. I mean, that barn raising sequence is a proper set piece, isn't it? And and it was such a problem for them to shoot as well, because when there's so much going on, they're dancing on the floor, but they're also jumping in the air and getting on tables. And of course, this was shot in widescreen, so like you don't actually get much height in the shot. So it was actually quite challenging for them to shoot. Point to note as well, it was all shot in a soundstage, or it was predominantly shot in a soundstage, because there's some shots I'm like, is that a soundstage or is it a matte painting? I think it might be a matte painting in a soundstage. It was both. So anyway, but the point is, they were massive sets that they had to build to create these sequences. And then the barn, so it's a large barn structure that they're building as they're singing and dancing. And apparently to light that, it was so complicated that they actually had to use, for one of the first times ever in a film, walkie-talkies, which had never been used before, just to kind of coordinate all the hundreds of people who were having to light this huge set. But yeah, that barn raising sequence, though, yeah, it was great, because then it's an elaborate dance routine as they build a barn together, and it devolves into this huge dust-up, which made me feel quite bad, because on our Seven Samurai podcast, I talked about how action sequences in American cinema in the 40s and 50s were a little bit poor, but I was watching that thinking, well, it's bloody, there's a lot going on here. The stuntmen earned their money in that one, so it's a huge set piece. They do earn their money, but it doesn't look like real fighting. And I felt like Seven Samurai has even in such, a film from the same era, very old film, like there was for some reason that felt a bit more real. I don't know if a part of it is the fact that we're clearly watching a soundstage. Well, no, so there's singing and dancing, so it's not grounded, so I think there's a bunch of other factors, but you're right. But the way they're throwing those punches it does feel very choreographed, but to me, again, it all just adds to the magic of it, because I'm like, again, I'm watching a moment in film history. I'm not watching anything resembling any kind of reality, that was a highlight of the film for me, was that entire sequence. So yeah, I was just completely engaged with it. Like, this is what I'm here for. I'm here for the beautifully choreographed, incredibly dangerous, complicated dance routines. And let's have this. And it's a large scale dust up. So we've not just got a couple of people having a fight. There's like multiple layers of people all having multiple fights, that's as difficult to choreograph as the dance routines that we just saw.
Yeah, you're right. And actually, that's the thing. That's what makes it exciting, is there is a sense of threat, not for the characters who are having a fight, but for the actors who are having to do this choreographed fight where people are above them on the barn fighting up there. There are ladders falling. There are, hammers being thrown. There's all sorts going on. But I wanted to just talk about the choreography because it was the film was choreographed by Michael Kidd. And what I found interesting was that he actually was kind of instrumental in the music and lyrics, in that he would talk to the Gene DePaul wrote the music, Johnny Mercer wrote the lyrics, and Michael Kidd would speak to them and tell them how they envisioned the scene and what was going to happen. And then they would write the music and lyrics to fit with that, because he was really, initially he turned down the role because he said, how are we going to get a group of hulking masculine men who live in the woods to sing and dance? It's not going to work. But then he kind of figured it out and was like, okay, I'm going to try and make it feel as organic as possible. So you see that they don't really dance in the routine where they're singing about not being able to have sex with anything but sheep. We'll come back to that. And I'm slightly misrepresenting the lyrics, but it is essentially a song about being lonely and there only being sheep around them and what they meant to do. But you see they do choreograph moves, but it's more like chopping wood and walking around the fences, and
it's a classy move that, I mean, they do it in Singing in the Rain, that where they kind of almost fade in to the really more fantastical dancing sequence. They start off with it being grounded, which is exactly right here. I think it's just a way of kind of easing the audience into the fact that people are going to burst into song and dance. You just gently get there, or at least I think the better musicals, that's kind of what they do. Absolutely.
Well, I mentioned before the sheep. The Lonesome, I think the song was called Lonesome Polecat, and it's a song, it's as far as I remember, it's the only song with just the brothers singing, these 6 other brothers. And yes, they're singing about being lonely in the winter and basically wanting a girlfriend. But there's a particular lyric, a man can't sleep when he sleeps with sheep. Now, obviously that can be read a number of ways, but
there's an innocent reading there for sure.
There's certainly an innocent reading, but there's also another reading. And what I found interesting was, okay, it's the 50s. I get that feminism was in its early stages. Some of the things in this film people weren't going to be worried about, but you might think that a film that kind of celebrates kidnap and holding women hostage might be considered problematic. But no, the censors had no problem with the storyline itself. The only thing that they had a problem with was that particular lyric, a man can't sleep when he sleeps with sheep. Because God forbid there's any implication that men sleep. It's fine if women, it's the kind of...
fine, marry them under false pretenses, not a problem.
Invoking a story of rape, no problem. But the idea, God forbid. I mean, look, I'm not advocating sleeping with sheep in any way. I mean, I don't know. Their wool is cozy. Like
I don't think anyone will misread you as doing that level.
Yeah. So they had to. So the solution they came up with was having no sheep in that scene when the lyric is sung. So we have sheep before.
So you're not having to. So you don't visualize it quite as clearly.
Exactly.
Whereas if you had something to just help your imagination, you'd be like, "Oh, it's too much. That's too much."
Yeah. So I'm just wanting to draw your attention to a few other lyrics that were fine by the censors. So don't forget that when you take in a bride, sobbing fit to be tied, aka make sure they're going to be crying and it's fine to tie them up. Just make sure when you're taking it, right? Treat them rough like their Romans do, or else they'll think you're attached. I mean, it's just the kind of violence against women that this film is celebrating. Totally fine, guys. No problem.
Totally fine. Right. Another world. Yeah, I mean, and when I was looking into this, an interesting footnote about movie production is that this film was made in the 50s when television was suddenly becoming a threat to Hollywood. So Hollywood was having to pull out all the stops. It was having to do more to get audiences in the cinema, which is kind of where we're at again now. But so what they were doing, were exploring things that you couldn't get on your TV at home. So everyone's TV was small. It was a square box. So everything was going widescreen, full color, large scale cinema. So this is what Seven Brides for Seven Brothers was, and they filmed it in CinemaScope. They filmed it in CinemaScope. Because it was a fairly untried technique, the studio bosses were a bit nervous about it, so they actually made them shoot it in regular non-CinemaScope or flat widescreen. They had a completely second camera crew. So they had the main crew, second camera crew, and 90% of the film was shot with two cameras side by side. And so they actually did post-produce a version that uses the same takes and everything. It's just with a different camera. And so on the DVD, apparently, you can see both versions. And then for a few of the sequences, they would have to, because they couldn't get both cameras in close enough, they would shoot it with a CinemaScope once, then swap over to the other format to get this other angle for it.
Tommy Wiseau special, just like in The Room. He's part of an
Exactly.
illustrious film history of filming with two different cameras.
Exactly, two different formats, which of course completely blew the budget. I mean, that apparently, according to there's a fascinating article on American Cinematographer that is in the show notes. That's actually an article written in the 50s when the production was made, and they were saying that it wasn't much of a problem. It didn't really cause it, and I was like, you are kidding me. You're only saying that because this was in the 1950s. It must have been a huge pain in the ass having two completely separate cameras, different crews, all that kind of stuff. So that was all going on behind the scenes that you wouldn't even notice. But apparently that bumped up the cost of production because they were budgeting for two cameras, and that's why they had to do it all on location in the studio. That was the one way they could keep the cost a bit down.
Oh, I see. I mean, for me, I love the fact that it's all studios and it's all sets, because again, it's sort of
it adds to the charm.
It adds to the charm. But you're right, there is something. It is a clunky film. Like, in the dance routines are so impressive and spectacular and wonderful. But then you have, on that carriages driving up the mountain, and we've got that screen behind. What is that called?
It's either that looked like rear projection rather than front projection.
Right,
so rear projection.
projection, this kind of, screen of images behind them as they're pretending to race away from the people who are chasing them. And the sets, everything, it does feel kind of, it just feels very much of its time. And I enjoy that.
Absolutely. It's very stylized as well with its use of colour, because remember as well, this was kind of not very early colour, but black and white was still the predominant format. So shooting on colour would have been a bit more for a special occasion type of film. It wasn't that every film was colour. It was black and white was the norm still. And this was a rival to Technicolor, I noticed, Ansco colour.
I assumed it was Technicolor. It's not Technicolor.
No, it's a rival to Technicolor at the time. And actually, I did think it doesn't have quite the same saturated colours as Technicolor, but it has a nice pastel look to it, which I thought was very appealing. But they have, but just like Technicolor, you would see a credit for a Technicolor colour consultant. They had one for Ansco, and their job is to basically go around saying that colour green will not photograph correctly on our film format, so you've got to change your colours of your costumes to this, that, and the other. But I did like the fact that all the brothers had like bold, primary, quite popping colours, and then the brides had more muted, stately pastel colours. And Technicolor wasn't very good at pastel back in the day, so I think that they were showing off what this rival format could do.
Do you think that's why Howard Keel was ginger in the film? Because as far as I'm aware, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's not a natural redhead. Much like me, he's a faux redhead. And I wonder if that was partly because, the colours...
What the hell, Lily? What? You can't just casually move on from that. You're all the lie I've been living with. I assumed you were a natural redhead.
Are you serious? You didn't know that I dye my hair?
I don't think I did, no. Maybe I did.
So
anyway,
funny.
sorry.
No, I love that. Yeah, no, it's true. I know it's convincing because I'm so pasty, but I'm a faux redhead, I'm afraid. Much like Howard Keel.
God damn, just like Howard Keel.
Yeah. So I thought now we're talking about this. It never occurred to me before. It just always made me laugh that all of his brothers also have similarly dyed hair to match with him. And maybe that's it. Maybe it was because it was like, oh, let's get some nice colour in their hair to really make use of that.
It could have been actually because the
colouring.
black. I mean, everyone's seen black hair in black and white, right? So let's give them. Oh yeah, it may well have been. It may well have been actually to get the money's worth of shooting in colour.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I mean, so the budget was 2.54 million, which I guess was a fairly big budget back in 54 for a Hollywood movie.
I reckon. I wouldn't have sure. It sounds a lot for then. Yeah, I reckon.
Yeah. Yeah, but it did well at the box office, 9.4 million.
But that's not Fatal Attraction types of return. So you got like a three times return, We know everyone's going to be happy with that, but
yeah, and I think back in those days, that's I feel like. Well, I don't know. What are we saying? Is that good or bad? Because obviously people went to the cinema a bit more than they do now. But I guess film was still kind of new. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that was an excellent return, but that's the kind of returns that films were making back then. It's just, everyone's got addicted to taking big swings and getting big returns. Here it was, and also the way that films were distributed was very different up until the 1970s with the release of Jaws on a same day, same date. Films didn't make this big opening weekend. They kind of got word of mouth. They hung around in cinemas for maybe 6 months to a year, and people would go and see them. So they made money over time. So I would say everybody very happy with that return. That's the kind of returns they were expecting to see from films, I think.
I see. Okay.
We've just got into this. The past 20, 30 years, things have just got a little bit out of hand with how much they cost to make, and then there's no way they'll ever make a lot of return on investment from that.
Okay, well, I feel like we're coming to the end of our chat, but it just occurred to me that we've not really talked about the director Stanley Donen at all.
Oh, sorry,
I feel like there's something about films from the golden era when they're in the studio system where, I'm not denigrating the directors. Directors are really important to the film, but there's something about the fact that obviously if they hadn't made it, someone else would have directed it. It's not usually the story isn't driven by the director the way they are today. It starts with the studio putting together a script and then finding someone to work on it. But that's not to say he wasn't absolutely instrumental. I mean, I was interested to see that you mentioned Singing in the Rain at the start, which I know is one of your favourite musicals from that era, and he co-directed that as well. So he's got great pedigree. Oh yeah,
co-directed it with Gene Kelly. He's like, of course, yes, Gene, of course, I'll co-direct it with you. Yeah,
amazing.
You're not going to tell Gene Kelly, no, I won't let you direct your own dancing. And I do think in the studio system, it's not my strongest area of expertise, but I imagine there was probably still a ranking system. So you probably, because there was always A pictures and B pictures.
Yeah.
So I do suspect there was a roster of B picture directors, but he was clearly an A picture director.
Yes. And I'll also say that he directed Funny Face, which I love, an Audrey Hepburn film when he was at MGM. And then he left MGM and went on to direct Charade, another Audrey Hepburn movie that I enjoy. We talked about it actually early on the podcast, I think. Did we?
I don't think we covered the thing. We may have, but like it's like a kind of Hitchcock film. If Hitchcock was a bit more free and loose with comedy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if we did, God, I really felt like we did. Okay. Well, we should talk about it.
I felt like we did.
Maybe I feel like we probably did as part of a cluster. I just remember talking to you about. Oh no, you know what it was? It was when we were talking about Edith Head because she was the costume designer. So we talked about Charade in relation to her. So we should revisit to talk about the film in general because I love that movie. It's so fun.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's great.
Well, sorry, James, any other thoughts before I ask you for your letterbox review, your score?
No, no big thoughts really.
Did you
it was
like
kind of
it?
what I expected to be. I had a good time.
Okay, but it's not gonna enter the pantheon like alongside Singing in the Rain, but you enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see I can definitely tell it's the same director as Singing in the Rain. I just think with Singing in the Rain, he was working with Gene Kelly, and that just created alchemy. That created something its own little magic.
Yes, yeah. They just, I mean, it's sort of, I guess, in part because of the setting. Singing in the Rain is this like lush kind of New York story. It feels a bit like classier, and Seven Brides, Seven Brothers feels like I don't know. It's very much Sunday afternoon, as you would say, James. And just little. It has a bit less gloss to it. The fact that it's all. You can almost feel like you can see the hinges on the sets on the side. Any minute you're going to turn the camera and you'll see, some bit of the crew. But for me, that just adds to it. And every time I watch it, I have a good time. And the songs are all so catchy, especially the Sobbing Women song, unfortunately. Right. So, James.
Anyway.
What would you give it out of 5?
You see, I feel terrible because I feel like I'm going to bring our average down again. So I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with 2.5.
Okay, fine. That's fair. I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Oh, I thought it might score a little higher. Tell me why it's not scoring a bit higher.
I was going to, but actually, I think I can't give everything 4s and 5s. I need to get a bit more realistic. And
oh, you're coming over to my camp now.
A little bit, yes. I think, this film has so much nostalgic value for me. And if I have children, I will definitely be getting them to watch it. Problems about the content aside.
Little PowerPoint presentation beforehand just to contextualize it in cinema history and of course cultural context. Yeah, exactly.
We can do that actually. Maybe we could do a kind of side hustle and a comparative notes to accompanying slides for any viewing of old films.
Then you can be totally fine. It's totally fine to watch it. You understand why it's bad. Now just relax. It'll be fine.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So I don't think, it's not at the heady heights of, for example, Fatal Attraction, but which is also problematic in its own way. But yeah, I love that film. But yeah, it's by no means a perfect movie, but it's a great. I think if you haven't watched it and you're open to golden age of Hollywood movies, I think it's definitely worth a watch. But I'll give it a 3.5. Okay, so. James, we are going to wrap shortly, but before we do, I wanted to give you a little treat. I'm making this all about me, but as I mentioned at the top of the show, I am getting married this weekend.
Okay.
And you were kind enough to do me the solid of letting me talk about a film that I share with my fiancé, Leonardo.
Okay.
But as his name suggests, and as I believe you know, James, Leonardo is Italian.
Yes.
So I thought it might be nice, it might be fitting to end this episode with a little bit of a game.
Okay. You're right. I'm totally unprepared for this. This is genuinely I don't know what's going on here. Okay, yes. Let's play.
So, I don't know if you know this, James, but in Italy, it is pretty common for films, non-Italian films, when they come over to Italy, they get a new title.
Got you, yeah.
So, sometimes the titles of choice are interesting. So I thought it might be fun to play a little game. I'm going to give you the title of the movie and you have to guess what the title in English is, okay?
Oh, brilliant. Right. Okay, yes. Excellent.
Okay, so first things first. I want to say that these are all films we've discussed, bar one. So that gives you a little clue. Okay, so first and foremost, Mamma ho perso l'aereo. Okay, can you tell that I've just started Italian lessons? Let me say that again. Mamma ho perso l'aereo. L'aereo. Okay, I said that horribly, but let me
something to do with mum.
Yes, let me translate for you. Don't worry, I'm not expecting you to translate the Italian. So, Mum, I lost the flight.
Mum, I lost the flight. I mean, that sounds like sliding doors, but it wasn't to do with a flight. Mum, I lost the flight. Is this one we've covered? No, apart from one.
I'm actually not sure if we did cover it. This one, no, I don't think so. I would like to cover it.
Mum, I missed the flight. I mean, if we haven't covered it and you'd like to, maybe it's planes, trains, and automobiles? Or...
No, the mum is important. To give you a clue. Should you give up?
Yeah, I give up.
Home Alone.
God damn, yeah, okay, right, yes. I mean, I haven't seen Home Alone, so I guess, yeah.
Okay, oh gosh, I'm sorry, that's not very fair. Okay, we need to watch that movie when we do a Christmas special at some point, because I love it. But okay, all right, so that's not very fair. I started you on a trickier one. Okay, so this one we have done before. So, 500 giorni insieme. That's 500 days together.
500 days together. Ooh.
This is quite close to the title.
God, I'm no good in this kind of on the spot. Like 500 days, it's like a rom-com or something. I don't know.
Yes, it is, and we've talked about it recently.
500 days together. No.
Okay, I'll tell you. 500 Days of Summer.
Wait, but we've never covered that. We've not. These are the.
We did do that.
I've never seen
No?
it. No, I've never seen it.
Oh my God, you're right. I'm so sorry. I just watched that film recently. In my mind, any film I've watched recently, we must have talked about.
Sorry.
Oh God.
Because
Okay, no,
the thing is,
I'm sorry.
I did. That's the only one. That's the first thing that came to my head. But I just thought, but we haven't seen that anyway.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Okay, this is all going horribly wrong. I do apologize. Okay, in that case, I honestly have no idea if we've talked about this one or not.
Okay.
In fact, no, I don't think we have.
Okay.
L'amore bugiardo, which
Boogie
means
Nights.
the deceptive love.
Oh,
No.
the deceptive love.
Yes, the deceptive love.
Oh, the deceptive love.
A relatively recent release. Well, in the last 20 years. In fact, it was 20 years ago. That's not that recent, is it? God, I'm so old.
God, I'm no good at this one. I'm sorry. Go on.
No, I've made it very difficult. Okay, that's Gone Girl.
Oh no, I would have struggled to got that one, even though I've seen
Yeah,
it.
that's a difficult one. Okay, this, to be honest, this is going to be very difficult. I'm realizing how tricky these are. Okay, L'attimo fuggente. That seize the moment. Now, I'll have to give you a clue because that's like, what even is that? But it stars Robin Williams.
Seize the moment. Oh, is it What Dreams May Come?
No.
Oh, is it?
I'll tell.
Wait, seize the moment.
Yeah.
It's Carpe Diem. It's Dead Poet Society.
Yeah. Yes! Oh my God, yes.
Got one.
Very good. You got one. Very good, very good. Okay, the final one and my personal favourite. This one I think you should be able to get. Si mi lasci, ti cancello. If you dump me, I cancel you.
If you dump me, I cancel you.
Yes, and it's a spoiler to give you a clue.
No, I'm so sorry. I'm terrible at this game. If you
No,
dump me,
it's
I'll
quite
cancel
alright.
you.
But this is iconic, okay? That's the title for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Iconic. I love it. I love it.
I mean, way to fucking ruin the film, right? I mean, what the hell?
The poetry of the original title. No.
No poetry, doesn't make sense. Let's just tell you let's spoil the whole movie for you and reveal it from the very beginning.
Love it. Love it. Excellent work.
Well, thank you for playing my game. I'm sorry it was so difficult.
That was brutal, Lily. I thought I'd fancy my chances a lot better than it turned out.
Well, next time I will go for films that you have actually seen. I think that's
Chuck a Nolan in there. I'd love to know what Inception was, for example, you know?
Yeah, okay, that's right. Yeah, I'm going to have to look into that. All right. Well, thank you, James. And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Groovy Movies.
Thank you. And as always, if you could leave us a like or a review, all these things help get the podcast out to the widest possible audience.
So we'll see you next week for our season finale. Bye.
Bye.
Groovy Movies is produced and edited by us, Lily Austin and James Brailsford. And James also produced the theme music.
Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Groovy Movies Pod or email us groovymoviespod@gmail.com.
For more information about the films discussed, check out the show notes.